Hi everyone, very good evening and welcome back to Crack Grade B. So today we are going to start a crash course on your elective paper, that is rural banking, and we'll be conducting a session onto the module A that talks about rural India, right? So rural India mein we have to talk about a lot of things like population, literacy, your agriculture census, right? Your economic census, where we'll be talking about the manufacturing sector, its urban as well as the rural expanse. So all of these things we'll be discussing in this particular session. But one thing that I want to declare over here is that we'll be doing it very quickly because the paper is round the corner, right? And we will be focusing on to the important parts only. So for any section, for example population, be it literacy, be it health, or be it any other topic, what is our major concern is first of all the definition, right? So the definition part concerns us, and then we have to talk about the numbers, right? So these are the two things that we'll be covering. Government data is our source, so government data पे ही हमें focus करना पड़ेगा. First of all, let's start and let's talk about the census, right? So we all understand that there happens a census in every decade, right? And it is important to know that, okay, what are the factors that our country is dealing with, right? What are the caste related factors, or what are your male female related factors, right? So everything is captured in your census related data. But in the year 2021 we all know that there was COVID, and hence census collection was delayed. So in that particular sense, this particular line becomes important for us. Census 2011, it was a 15th census since 1872 when the first census was collected, right? It was 15th census. Agar 2021 में census hota, then it would have become 16th census, but the collection of data was delayed obviously because of COVID. What is census? It is a process of collecting, compiling demographic, social, cultural, economic data related to all the people in the country in 10 years interval, right? So this is what is important for us in the census related thing. And then there is information is giving because the census 2021 was delayed because of the COVID. Next thing that we need to talk about is population. So here I have included two kinds of data. Number one, the data as per census 2011, because that is the credible data from the government side that is available with us. And then I have also included a data by the UN, okay? Because India has now become the most populous country, तो उसके लिए भी जो है UN का data include किया गया है, what UN is saying about the population. Let us see over here. So as per census of India 2011, the population of India is having 121 crore people. 62 crores males are there, and the remaining population comprises of females, that is 58 crores something, right? With a population of 102 crores in 2011, the growth rate has been 17.7%. So growth rate has been boomed up during the decade of 1971 till 1991. You can say those 20 years were the years of population boom, and after that we saw that there has been a growth rate but a declined growth rate in the population, right? Next thing, then they are having some population projections, but we do not have to we'll not talk about that, right? Because we will see the population projections as per UN. See over here, so India accounts for a meager 2.4% of the world's surface area, right? But yet it accounts for 17.3% of the world's population. So that is the data that one needs to remember, that we have a smaller portion of land area, but the population that we cater to is obviously a huge population. Now we are the largest country in terms of population, right? Now this is what UN has said in the month of April 2023, right? April 2023 में UN ने कहा that by the end of April 2023, India's population is going to be approximately 1.42 billion. It is slightly higher than the China's population of 1.4 billion in 2022, right? So what has been estimated, the China's population in 2022, we have exceeded that, and because of this UN estimate, now we are being called as the world's most populous country. Moving forward and talking about the TFR, We also have this particular data in terms of your National Family Health Survey, right? NFHS 5 has also declared this. So इसके लिए हमारे पास में government data भी है, but UN also says that India's current fertility rate is 2 birth per woman is just below the replacement threshold of 2.1. What is this replacement threshold? So TFR talks about that if there has been reproduction at the rate of 2.1, this is going to exactly replace the population, right? But if you have the fertility rate lower than the 2.1, then in the future you are going to witness the population decline. ठीक है, आपकी population कम होने वाली है. Now, having talked about population in terms of government as well as what UN has said about it, moving forward and talking about the population density. Chaliye. So let's talk about the population density over here. What does population density means? Population density correlates two things. Number one, population. Number two, area, right? So when these two things come together, we talk about population density. यहाँ पे 2011 census के हिसाब से हमको data जानना है. And then we also have to talk about that which state is having the most dense population. ठीक है, so ये दो चीजें जो हैं ये हमें जाननी है यहाँ पे. It is an index of the population concentration, right? What do we measure over here? So the definition part becomes important. It is number of persons per square kilometer, right? Number of persons per square kilometer. The population density of India in 2011 was 382 per square kilometer with a decadal growth rate of 17.7%. Among the bigger states, Bihar was the most thickly populated states with a population density of 1106 persons per square kilometer, followed by your West Bengal and then followed by the Kerala. So what becomes important for us over here is Bihar. ठीक है, बिहार की जो population है, Bihar is the most thickly populated state, right? And then among the smaller states and union territories, the population density of NCT of Delhi was the highest, 11,320 persons, right? Moving forward, so let's talk about the sex ratio. Again, the census will be the guiding force behind this particular data also. यहाँ पे हम दो टाइप के sex ratios की बात करेंगे. First of all, we'll be talking about the adult sex ratio, and then we need to also talk about the child sex ratio, right? So defined as the number of females per 1,000 male, it is an important social indicator that we need to measure. Because obviously our society is like that, we have to measure sex ratio. Being in the what you can say Western societies, this does not concerns as much as this is what you can say a topic of discussion in India. So sex ratio was 972 at the beginning of 20th century, 1901, and then the decline started, right? And in the 2011 we recorded it at 943 in 2011. Now this being adult sex ratio, when we talk about the child sex ratio, right, what is the child sex ratio? So number of girls aged 0 to 6 years per 1,000 boys, right? So you need to understand the definition as well. Child sex ratio mein we are measuring the quantum of which kind of childs, right? What kind of childs we are measuring. So over here we are measuring the child aging below 6 years or up to 6 years. So for that, the child sex ratio in the year 2011 was 919 per 1,000 boys. Now let's talk about literacy. Even in literacy, the number one thing that becomes important is the definition. What does it mean to be literate, right? So over here, a person who's aging 7 and above, who can both read and write, understand in any language, it is treated as literate as per Census of India 2011. So literacy ki ye definition has been given through the Census of India. A person who can only read but cannot write is not treated literate, right? So over here both the conditions are important. Should be having reading capacity as well as the writing capacity. Having said that, now let us focus on to the numbers. What numbers have to say about the literacy in India, and you will see that the literacy rate in India is standing at 73%, 80% for the males and 64% is for the females, right? So there has been an increase. Kerala is in top position with 94% of the males and the 92% of the females, followed by the Lakshadweep. So we have to remember the state which is having the highest literacy. So this was the part of literacy that we need to remember. Moving ahead and talking about the migration. In the migration, we need to start from the definition part, right? So Census of India measures migration through two methods. What are those two methods? Let us see. So Census of India records migration by two methods. Number one, the place of last residence, and then place of birth. Right? In place of last resident, migrants are defined as the people who are currently residing at a different place. In terms of place of birth, people who are currently residing at a place different from their place of birth, they are treated as the migrants. So these are the two methods of migration in the Census of India related measures. How many migrants are there? So around 455 million people, they were treated as migrants as per the place of last resident, and 141 million people, they were considered to be migrants between the 2001 and 2011. Then only 15.6% of the migrants, they were interstate migrants, and 64% of the migration in the period happened within the district of enumeration. Right? So within district, inter-district migration along with the interstate migration, these are the three parts through which migration is measured in India. How many people are migrating from one state to another state, from one district to another district, and within a district, what are the migration numbers? Moving ahead and talking about the fertility and the mortality rates. We have already talked a little about the total fertility rate, right? So fertility rate or the total fertility rate is the average number of children that would be born to a woman over her lifetime. Here we are calling replacement level fertility as 2.1, right? So if every woman bores 2.1 on an average 2.1 children, and that is called as a replacement level fertility. That means whatever is the current population, it would be exactly replaced, right? So that's what we are talking about over here. A TFR of about 2.1 children is called as a replacement level fertility. From a total fertility rate of 2.6 in 2008, we have what you can say, we have improved a lot, and the government data for that you need to remember is going to be this one. So India's TFR has dropped from 2.2 to 2.2, reveals the NFHS 5 National Family Health Survey 5 report. So this has talked that now India's TFR, that is total fertility rate, has become 2. It is below the replacement level fertility. That means the current population exactly will not be replaced, and in future we are going to see a population decline. ठीक है, population decline हम face करेंगे. That is what means by having a below replacement level fertility. Having said that, moving ahead and talking about the crude birth rate, right? So what is important over here? Crude birth rate and crude death rate. It is the class 9th level basics, and over here you have to remember the definition. ठीक है, आपको definition पता होनी चाहिए. What do we mean by crude birth rate and what do we mean by crude death rate? So crude birth rate, it is a measure of birth rate, and it is defined as the total number of live birth. See it? Total number of live birth in a year that needs to be divided by the total mid-year population and multiplied by 1000 to express in per thousand population. Now many of the times where do we get stuck is this. The population measure that is being used to calculate crude birth rate is mid-year population, right? Mid-year population. So that is from where question can be framed. Now next is India's crude birth rate has reached 19.7 per thousand pop in 2019. Now what is crude death rate? So again over here the definition part is very important. So crude death rate is a measure of mortality, and it is defined as the total number of deaths in a year divided by the total mid-year population, and then it is multiplied by 1000 in order to express the data in per thousand population. right? So this is your crude death rate. Now let's talk about the IMR. What is infant mortality rate? So it is again another important indicator, and over here what do we talk about? This is number of death per year per 1,000 live birth of children under 1 year of age. So this becomes important. Obviously, we are talking about the mortality, so we are going to talk about death. Death of what? Death of a child. But what do we mean by infant? Infant means under 1 year of age. ठीक है? एक साल के अंदर अंदर if there is a death, that will be called as the infant mortality rate. India has been able to drastically reduce the IMR rate from 50 to 30 in 2019. Now, next thing that we need to talk about is sixth economic census, right? So over here, the focus of yours, I have included this in a bit detail, right? थोड़ा सा detailed है, but what we need to focus is on urban as well as the rural bifurcation, right? We will be also talking about the women establishments and all of that. So ये सारा जो data है वो हमारे लिए important हो जाता है. Let us see. So sixth economic census, it has covered all states and union territories of Indian Union. Fieldwork was conducted January 2013 to 2014 in collaboration with the state and UT governments. Over here, what they have done, they have enumerated that they have taken data from all the establishments that have been engaged in agriculture, non-agricultural activities, excluding the crop production, plantation, public administration, defense, and compulsory social securities. So I hope that you will be paying attention to the negatives of the economic census, right? What kind of establishments have not been covered by the economic census? That should be the area of focus. Now next is, as per the sixth economic census, 58.5 million establishments, they were in the operation. Now over here, what do we have to focus on? This 59.48 establishments, they were found in rural areas, right? And the remaining were obviously in the urban areas. So यहाँ पे we have to focus that yes, as per the sixth economic census that happened in 2013, majority of establishments that they are operational, they are in the rural areas. If I have to say, approximately 60% of your establishments, they have been found to be operated in or from rural areas. Now, even out of these, what you can say, total 58.5 million establishment, there has been a further segregation. And what does this segregation talks about? 77% of the establishments, they are in the agricultural activities. See, 77%, that means a huge majority is in the agricultural activities, while the remaining 22%, they were in the agricultural activities excluding the production and the plantation, right? Now next that we have, out of the total 58.5 million establishments, we will be talking about the ownership related data. So 96% of the establishments, they are under the private ownership, and the remaining have been the government owned. Now, state related data as per the economic census, just wait for a second. Yes, so state related data over here, top 5 states that we have, you will find Uttar Pradesh leading, then Maharashtra, West Bengal, Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh. They together are accounting for 50% of the total number of establishments in the country, right? Now, having talked about it, now we'll be talking about the employment related data. Employment related data mein we will be focusing on to the rural and urban thing. Yes. So around 131 million persons, they were found to be employed in 58.5 million establishments that we have seen, right? Out of these total people, 51.71 they were employed in the rural areas, right? So this data is important as we talk about the human resource. 51% people, they were employed in the rural areas and the remaining in the urban areas. Out of this, only this two lines, these are important for us, right? Agricultural establishment, they provide employment to around 17%, and the non-agricultural establishment, they have provided the employment to 82.58%, right? So non-agricultural is providing more employment, and you see agriculture is providing the lesser employment. That means the number of people that have been engaged by these kind of activities, that's what we are discussing over here, कि agricultural establishments ने ज़्यादा लोगों को engage कर रखा है. 7.2% of the workers, they were employed in the government sector, and 78% of the workers in the proprietary establishments. Now this is something that we can choose to skip, not really very important. Lastly, this data is something that where we can pay a little bit of attention. Let's see over here. Manufacturing sector is going to be has been the largest employer as per the your economic census, right? It was the largest employer, providing employment to 30.3 million. That means 23% persons. This was followed by the retail trade, and then the livestock sector has been following it. So manufacturing and then retail trade, right? And then livestock sector. What have been the top 5 states? So in the map, see, there has been two bifurcations. पहला जो bifurcation था, that was in terms of establishment. ठीक है, कहाँ ज़्यादा establishments हैं, कौन सी states में, and there in that part we have seen that Uttar Pradesh was leading in the numbers of establishment. But when we are talking about over here, यहाँ पे हम बात कर रहे हैं कितने लोगों को employment मिल रहा है, how many people are getting employed, right? So we are talking about in terms of people, not in terms of establishment. And by keeping that in mind, let us see top 5 states that are there: Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh, West Bengal, Tamil Nadu and Gujarat. They are accounting for almost half of the total employment in the country, right? So over here you can see Maharashtra is leading, and Uttar Pradesh is following up with a narrow margin, right? Now next thing is the women entrepreneurs, that is also a part of your economic census, ठीक है? So total number of establishment that has been owned by women entrepreneurs has been 13.76%, right? What it has been, 13.76%. These establishments provided employment to 13.45 million persons, out of which 83% were the hired persons. Now this is something, this particular data has been included in your economic census, but इतना ज़्यादा ज़रूरी नहीं है. You can choose to remember basic data. For example, number of establishment that has been owned by the women entrepreneurs was 13.76%, and then the total number of self-help groups were 0.19 million, out of which women owned account establishments were 89%, right? So out of 0.19 million self-help groups, all women establishments were 89%. So this was the data that you have to remember from your economic census, right? I have tried to include all the important data that your economic census has talked about, although I would say that this is a little much in detail considering the exam which is very near, राइट. सो यहाँ पे आप जो है इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट्स को फोकस करेंगे. आगे बढ़ते हैं और बात करते हैं एग्रीकल्चर सेंसस की. Yes. So agriculture census, the total number of operational holdings in the country has increased from 138 million to 146 million. There has been an increase of 5.33%, right? Operational agricultural holding. Now, the data that we see from 2015-16 agriculture census, it reveals that out of 146 million operational holdings in the country, the highest number of holders, they are belonging to the Uttar Pradesh. Obviously UP is the most populous state in our country, and that is how you can remember that the highest number of operational holders, when we are talking about the people, ठीक है, जब हम लोगों की बात कर रहे हैं, so yes, the highest number of operational holders that they are in the Uttar Pradesh. It is followed by the Bihar and Maharashtra, and then your Madhya Pradesh. As regards operated area, out of the total 157 million hectares, the highest operated area was contributed by Rajasthan. Over here, obviously Rajasthan is having the largest area in the country. ठीक है, राजस्थान के पास कंट्री का सबसे ज्यादा largest area है. UP is having the highest population in the country, and that is how you can choose to remember the agricultural data as well. When we are talking about the agricultural holders, then we have to consider UP and when we are talking about the land, then we have to consider Rajasthan, right? So over here, at all India level, the percentage increase in the numbers of operational holdings as compared to the agriculture census, it worked out to be 5.33 among states, and the highest variation was found in the Madhya Pradesh. Now this is the basic data which you can choose to ignore. Now then, always we have to focus on the exceptional data, right? Wherever exceptions have been given, these are the points where the questions tend to get formed. So over here, some states have also shown decline in the numbers of operational holding. If you will remember the first line of the agriculture census, पहली line agriculture census की ये बोलती है there has been a growth of 5%. But when you are saying that this growth is not pervasive, when we talk about all the states, that's where this what you can say, your exception comes into the picture. So the sharpest fall has been in the Goa, lowest has been in the Manipur, right? So Goa needs to be remembered that there has been a decline in the operational holding, and thus this decline is 28.77%, right? As per agriculture census, out of 36 states in the country, it was found out that the 14 states that has been named as now for about 91.3% in terms of number of operational holdings and 88% in terms of the area operated in the country. Again a basic data. Again a basic data over here, right? यहाँ पे हम किस बारे में बात कर रहे हैं? We are saying that these 14 states in the country, they are cumulatively they are responsible for 91% of the holding as well as the 88% of the agricultural area that is being operated in the country. यहाँ पे हम state wise data जो है उस पे ज़्यादा focus करेंगे. For example, which state is leading for the number of operational holders, right, and which states are leading in terms of the area. ठीक है. Now the next thing is average size of the operational holding. It has declined to 1.08 hectares as compared to 1.15 hectares in 2010-11. So this can be remembered. Now again we will be focusing on to the basics over here. Female operational holders ka data needs to be remembered. It has increased, right? It was from 12.79%. Now it is 13.87% in 2015-16, right? So this figure needs to be remembered. So right. So in the agriculture, what are the female operational holders? It is approximately 14%. 13.87 is the exact figure. Only this particular data needs to be remembered. Next, we need to talk about the small and the marginal holders. Small and marginal holders taken together, they are constituting 86.21% in 2015-16, right? While their share in the operated area stood at 47.34%. So यहाँ पे हमको क्या याद करना है? हमें ये figure याद रखना है that the small and marginal holders, they are at 86.21%, ठीक है, 86.21% in 2015 and 16. Then medium operational holdings, not really very important. Large holdings is something that yes, So large holdings, what are large holding? 10 hectares and above, they were merely 0.57% of the total holdings in 2015-16. And see, that is the major problem of Indian agriculture. Indian agriculture की problem ही है fragmentation. Population is high, and that is why land gets divided and further divided, and this is where the problem lies. और यही represent कर रहा है that large holdings, that is 10 hectares and above, are very less in our country. As per the agriculture census, the for scheduled caste maximum area of operational holding is contributed by Rajasthan, followed by the Uttar Pradesh, and the similar kind of maximum number of operational holdings for the scheduled caste is contributed by the Uttar Pradesh. You can see the relation over here. We are talking about the scheduled caste, right? For scheduled caste, what is the maximum area of operational holding? In this, Rajasthan is leading, right? We have seen that in the total data also Rajasthan was leading for the area of agricultural holding. Area के केस में आपका राजस्थान ही lead कर रहा है, and when we are talking about the number of operational holdings, it is being led by UP. Whether we are talking about all the operational holdings or whether we are talking about specifically about the scheduled caste, the thing remains the same. ठीक है? According to agricultural census, for the scheduled tribes, maximum area of operational holding is contributed by Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh and the Maharashtra. Okay, so this has been the data of your agricultural census. Now we'll be moving ahead and talking about the rural-urban migration. Okay, just wait for a second. Yes. So, as per International Organization for Migration, who is a migrant? Migrant is a person who moves away from his or her place of usual residence. He could be migrating from one country to another, right? He could be migrating from one state to another. He could be migrating from one district to another, right? Now over here आपको ये भी याद रखना पड़ेगा that yes, migrants in our country as per census, they are measured by two measures, as per the place of last residence and as per the place of birth, right? So from both these measures we measure that what are the number of migrants in our country. ये दोनों चीजें measure की जाती हैं, but leaving that aside, over here we will be talking about the internal migration and the external migration. Internal migration का मतलब क्या? Internal migrants are those migrants which are migrating within the country. For example, suppose I have migrated from UP to Rajasthan, right? So this will be called as a internal migration. Suppose when I am migrating from Rajasthan to, let's say, Europe, that is going to be called as the external migration, right? So these are the two things. 2011 census that has recorded the number of internal migrants 45.36 crores. The same figure we have read in terms of millions, right? Which accounted for 37% of the country's population at that particular time. Economic Survey 2016-17 data I have also taken. It highlighted that relatively less developed state, for example, Bihar, UP experienced high net out migration, while the more developed states, for example, Goa, Delhi, Maharashtra, Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, they have witnessed the net immigration. Immigration means the people have come over to these states in search of employments as well as the better education prospects. Wherever the lesser developed states, you will always see that in the rural areas there are females who are outnumbering the males, because the males have migrated to other areas in search of job, in search of what you can say education, etc. Wait. So yes, So these are the two things that you need to remember. Why I have quoted Economic Survey 2016-17, why not a latest thing? Because see, every time an economic survey picks out, economic survey of our country, they picks out different kind of topics, ठीक है, अलग अलग topic जो है ये pick up करते हैं. So 2016-17 economic survey was talking about it, and that is why we have included data from there. Now next, we also have a migration in India report 2020-21. It talks about the females had a significant higher migration rate, 47.9%, compared to the males at 10.7%. Obviously, the major reason why the females are migrating is because of the marriage, right? So primary drivers for the females for the migration was marriage, 86%. That means whatever the total female migration is happening, 86%, or if I round it off, 87% of the migration is happening because of the marriage, right? And then employment accounting for 49.6% of the male migration. So जितना भी male migration हो रहा है उसमें से आधा reason उसका ये है employment, right? So these are the two data which are important for us. Now what are the factors responsible wait in the year 2020-2021, the overall migration rate in India, it was 28.9%. With the urban areas, they are experiencing a higher migration rate of 34.9% compared to the rural areas at 26.5%. Now, what are the factors responsible? Although we all understand about it, so I'm not going to cover it in detail. बहुत ही जल्दी जल्दी हम इसके बारे में बात करेंगे. Migration के लिए what are the reasons responsible? We all understand it very nicely. So first of all, economic factors are there. Obviously, people migrate because of the better job prospects. Social factors are there. For example, marriage is there, family is there, access to quality education, educational institutions are there. Demographic factors are there. What are demographic factors? So high population density in certain regions it is coupled with the limited resources and the employment opportunities. Why the younger individuals are migrating? They are migrating for the education and employment. Then there are environmental factors as well. Some regions are prone to natural disasters. For example, if I say in our country, you can say the area which is bordering Nepal, and the Nepal as a whole, they are very, what you can say, prone to natural disasters. For example, floods, for example, your earthquakes, right? So we always see out migration from such kind of areas. Okay, and then we have climate patterns, environmental degradation, political instability, communal tension, conflicts, etc. They can result in migration. So these are all the factors. These are responsible for the internal migration as well as the external migration. Just a little bit, very much in the nature of common sense, so not much of your attention is required over here. Now moving ahead and talking about the local government, right? So local government क्या हुआ? In our constitution they have envisaged, first of all they have envisaged central level government and then the state level government. After that, in the DPSPs there was a provision for the local governments that was given. It was one of the Gandhian principles to have local governments, like flourishing local government. That was one of the Gandhian principles. So moving on to that, in some of our states such kind of structures emerged, right, just after the independence in the 1950s, but it got the legal as well as the constitutional status only after the 73rd and 74th amendment. So पहले को बहुत सारी committees थी, they have given their recommendations. You just have to remember the name of the committee, the year in which they have given the recommendation, and very little about the recommendation. If I tell you very honestly, the kind of recommendation they gave is not much of the importance. What is important is the name of the committee and the year in which they have been formed to give the advice, right? So these are the important things. So evolution of Panchayati Raj after independence. First we have to see the Balwant Rai Mehta committee, formulated in 1957. followed by Ashok Mehta Committee in the year 1977. So your Balwant Rai Mehta Committee recommended three-tier system: Gram Panchayat at village level, Panchayat Samiti block level, and the Jila Parishad at district level. Great. Ashok Mehta talked about two-tier system, that is Jila Parishad at district and then Mandal Panchayat. And then there was some other committees as well. Why we have not talked about their recommendations? Because the original thing, or what you can say, the thing has been done by the 73rd as well as the 74th amendment, so there is no need to read about the recommendations that these committees have provided, right? Like GVK Rao committee formulated in 1985, Singhvi committee 1986, Thangan committee 1988, and then you have the Gadgil committee 1988. What is important is you have to remember the chronological order, in which these committees have been formulated. आपको year याद रखने की जरूरत है, आपको chronology याद रखने की जरूरत है, and obviously the names of the committee. Then we will see the 73rd amendment, which came in the year 1992, and it provided, there are the articles that have been there, that are there in the constitution for this. Now what are the main features of this particular act, 73rd amendment 1992? Let us see this. So three-tier system of Panchayati Raj for all states, they are having the population of over 20 lakhs. This particular act said this: Panchayat elections regularly every 5 years. There has been a reservation of seats for the scheduled caste as well as scheduled tribes along with the women, not less than the one-third of the seat. The seats have to be reserved for the SCs and STs in proportion of their population. Appointment of State Finance Commission is one such requirement over here, right? So State Finance Commission भी यहाँ पे formulate करना है. Next is all three levels of Panchayati Raj institutions elected directly by the people. If the state government dissolves the Panchayat before the end of its 5 years, am I audible now? Uh, okay. So we were talking about the panchayats, and I was telling you that the panchayats are not financially sound, right? They have the financial power as much as the state government gives them. And over here, this Article 243H of the Constitution has been inserted by the 73rd Amendment, and it tells the state government that you have to enact the laws so that you give the power to the panchayat to levy taxes, then to collect some taxes, apart from that making the grants in aid. Then we have State Finance Commission. So the state government is also required to appoint a State Finance Commission once in 5 years. This commission would examine the financial position of the local governments in the state. Now, one more thing, why there is a controversy, because many of the states, they do not formulate State Finance Commission on time, and that is why you will see in the 15th Finance Commission that that was there for the union government, they said that one of the conditions to receive the grant is formulating the state finance commission on time. तो इस तरीके के tools भी use किए जा रहे हैं so that the state governments can be nudged to formulate the state finance commission on time. Now, in relation to your local government, there comes an act called as the Provisions of Panchayat Act 1996, right? So we have to understand that there are scheduled tribes in our country, right? So there are some states which are dominated by the scheduled tribes, but then there are some states where the, what you can say, other castes, they live along with the scheduled caste, and scheduled caste is in minority in that particular states. But we have to protect the customs as well as the culture of the scheduled tribes that they are having. So by keeping that in mind, we understand that there are some tribes, there are some castes which are having a different culture than what is prevailing in a country as a whole, and for preserving that there has been a different act that has came together. और यहाँ पे हम क्या है, इस scheduled caste को, STs को, we are giving more powers, right? So by having that particular introduction, let's talk about this particular act. So provisions of 73rd Amendment, they were not made applicable to the areas which has been which are inhabited by the Adivasi population. Why? Because if we will impose our what you can say rules and regulations onto them, so that will be considered as some kind of coercion, right? So we also have to understand that they do have a different culture than us. So in 1996 there was a separate act that was passed, and then the provisions of panchayat have been molded and then they were extended to such Adivasi areas. Now the fifth schedule of the there are two schedules of the constitution, fifth schedule and sixth schedule, right? In the sixth schedule you will see the states of AM, TM, right? So these are all the northeastern state, right? Your Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, Mizoram. Okay, has been written over here. So fifth schedule of the constitution deals with the administration and control of scheduled areas as well as scheduled tribes which are residing in any state other than the state of AM, TM, because this is dealt with sixth schedule, right? These four states, they are dealt with six schedules, and any other areas where the scheduled tribe population is living, that is handled by the fifth schedule, right? And there are currently 10 states in it. यहाँ पे इस वक्त 10 states हैं. These 4 states, they are in the 6th schedule, and then in 5th schedule you are having the 10 states. At present, the 5th schedule area, they exist in 10 states. Example, Andhra Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Gujarat, Himachal, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Odisha, Rajasthan, and the Telangana. PESA empowers Gram Sabha Panchayat at appropriate level with. Now, what are the distinction that has been what you can say introduced with the PESA? That is something that we need to talk about. Although this is very much broad in its own, but हमने सिर्फ major provision लिए हैं. First of all, the applicability. So PESA is applicable in the 5th schedule areas. 5th schedule areas, there are 10 states, right, which are considered as 5th schedule areas. Why they are considered as such? Because वहाँ पे scheduled tribes population, they are living, they are having different customs than us, and that is why we are not imposing the provisions of panchayat directly onto them, right? हम directly उन पे impose नहीं कर रहे हैं. So PESA empowers right to mandatory consultation if there is land acquisition, resettlement, and displacement. So there has to be a mandatory consultation with Gram Sabha, mandatory recommendation by the Gram Sabha at appropriate level for the lease of mines, concession for the exploitation of the minor minerals, regulate sale and consumption of intoxicants, ownership of minor forest produce, manage the village markets, control over money lending to the scheduled tribes, right? So you see why these things have been made. Even in the Gram Sabha, there is disproportionate representation has been given to the scheduled tribes, right? So these people can decide what is good for them. Nobody can coerce them by providing them money, right? By exploiting the forest resources that they are having, right? For by exploiting the mines as well as the other mineral resources that they are having, right? So in सबको mind में रख के this particular act was made. Now we have tried to cover many topics in length in today's video. I hope you must have liked the video, right? If you did, then please do not forget to give us a thumbs up, and thank you so much for joining in.